Intrigue at the premiere! A time of great excitement as Devan and Peter produce the first episode of their podcast, I Am No Jedi, an Ahsoka podcast. The episode contains spoilers for Ahsoka, episodes 1 and 2, Star Wars Rebels, Clone Wars, and the entire Skywalker saga movies.
Hi, I'm Peter.
And I'm Devan, and this is I Am No Jedi, an Ahsoka podcast.
This is our first ever episode of our first ever podcast, so if it sounds like we don't know what we're doing, it's because we're figuring it out as we go.
Just a heads up, we're going to be talking about the animated series Star Wars Rebels a lot, so if you haven't watched Rebels and don't want spoilers, you should definitely watch Rebels before listening to this podcast.
Yep, you've been warned. So without further ado, let's dive into our discussion on the 2-episode premiere of Ahsoka.
I'm so excited. This is my Super Bowl.
Yeah, I saw your post that it's your Super Bowl. That was great. Yeah,
It's true.
yeah. I'm really excited it's finally happening, especially since I watched Rebels in 2014 when it came out, or it might have come out in 2013. I think 2014 was.
I think it was 14 to 18.
It was 14 to 18. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch it until like a couple of years ago. I watched it over the pandemic, even though you had been telling me to watch it for like ages and ages and ages.
You look at it, it's Disney XD. You're just like, there's no way. There's no way it's that good.
I started it. I'm like, why am I watching like VeggieTales Star Wars?
The first season really does look like that. So anybody who's listening and wondering, are the rumors true? Should I watch Rebels? Yes, trudge through the VeggieTales look in the first season.
I've seen so many people, especially leading up to Ahsoka, so many people online like trying to watch Rebels and being like, what am I missing? Or and it's just like, keep going. Like it gets so good. Like if you can get through that, especially in the first season, if you can get over the animation style, I know it's unappealing, but truly like top tier storytelling in Star Wars.
It's also very like each episode feels like a little adventure for like a kid's show that you might have grown up with, and you're just like, should I really commit to this? And then by the second season, it turns into this is a well-rounded continuing story now.
This premiered about 26 hours ago. I've watched both episodes twice now. I watched them when they came out last night, and then I watched them both again when I got home from work today, so that I could jot down some notes on my thoughts and everything. So yeah, I was really happy with it. I'm really excited to see where it's going. My initial impressions, like basically, I don't think there was not really anything that like really wowed me in these two. But it's in setup mode. It's setting everything up. It's introducing a bunch of characters to a new audience who hasn't watched Rebels or Clone Wars, and providing context into where we're going. So I think it did a really good job of those things. I'm excited to see where it's going. I
got chills at certain moments. Particularly from the music. I got really excited to see live action Lothal.
Yes.
That's something I really wanted, and I'm so happy I got it. I will say my mixed feelings on it were that I think it had a few adaptation problems that don't ruin it, but they do like stand out as this worked better in animation and needs to be fine-tuned. And also the green screen stood out for me like a lot. It definitely did. But overall I'm very excited about where it's going. I'm very hopeful in a very positive way. I'm optimistic about the choices they've made with the story.
Yeah, I'm excited. I am. Since you brought up the music, I had looked it up beforehand because I wanted to know, but they did get Kevin Kiner, who
Right?
composed the music for Rebels, which was awesome. I was like,
So happy.
I rewatched a bunch of Rebels in preparation for this, and I was just like, especially in the end of season 4, like the music is just such a big part of like building it, and the emotion behind it and everything. So I had to look up like, did they get him to do Ahsoka too? And they did. So that's awesome.
And it's like, it's on steroids too. It's like when they started playing Sabine's theme, when we first see her, I was like, so this in a few weeks will drop on my Spotify. Yes. Thank you, Jesus. / just, who am I kidding? The Force. Thank you, Mortis gods. Yeah.
The Mortis gods, yes.
The Mortis gods.
Yeah, the title crawl but different was hype for me, like right off the bat. Having a title crawl like that was just like that gave me chills.
Something about the music to that title crawl.
The music was
really
so like,
got me, like,
yeah,
drawn.
I agree. That like heavy like drum beat, it felt like very kind of primal, kind of like ancient, which is very in keeping. Yeah, it felt very epic and very different. It felt like a very different vibe.
Why is it familiar? I feel like I've seen something else. You know what starts that way? I'll take heat for this. But Darren Aronofsky's Noah starts that way. Very flawed movie. Yeah. But it nailed its tone. Of the whole, this is the dawn of time sort of vibe.
Yeah.
And it had a very similar music cue in its opening when it was giving you little titles before it started.
I don't remember that, but I believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it right off the bat kind of sets the tone with the music before the title crawl even comes up. You know, it's got like the masks going through and stuff. The helmets. And it's got that like heavy drum beat and this tone that it immediately, you're like, this is going to be really different from the other Star Wars shows that we've seen coming out, you know?
I would definitely call that one of my favorite moments. Even though it's like, it's just the title crawl, it just hit me so hard. And
Same.
I was watching it and they were saying like, a new evil is rising. And I was just like, great, they're going to try and tie it to the sequels.
A new evil is always rising in this place.
Yeah. So our audience kind of has a foothold since I assume many of them watch Star Wars. I'm a sequel hater. Devan is not. So you can still love the show because you will have representation.
We will have balanced viewpoints on the sequels.
Yes. She will be the Jedi, I will be the Sith when it comes to the sequels.
that is fair.
Yeah.
I absolutely recognize the flaws with the sequels, but I am able to find the light that is still in them.
It's like, if someone tells me, look, I liked 8, I'm like, I get it. It works as a movie, you know? But if someone says, I like 9, then I'm just like, look, we can't even have a conversation. It just wasn't a coherent thought. Like, that movie is what happens when you think you're brilliant and you're on drugs, and then you sober up and you realize, oh, none of this makes sense.
What have I done? Yeah, they didn't work as a trilogy at all together, obviously. I mean, this is just, I like 7 and 8 quite a bit as standalone movies, but it's just it's not a trilogy. And,
but like, movies resonate with people. They do. Like, and then people, grow up and change and realize things. Like, like I used to like Superman Return. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. I
loved Rise of Skywalker when I went to see it in theaters, because I was like, I'm going to see a new Star Wars in theater. This is the best day ever. I love that. And there's lightsaber battles and there's spaceships, and I was like, this is great. But then when you watch it back, kind of from a more critical eye, I'm like, oh, what are they doing? What is happening? What is this?
I let myself have a good time. Myself have a good time because I was like, there is going to be morsels of entertainment in this. And I will let myself appreciate them the first time I watch it, and they exist. They're absolutely there. I'm glad we got that little disclaimer out of the way
Yeah.
for the very intense and passionate fan base that is probably going to be tuning in. But back to what I
Our
was
very
saying,
intense
like
and passionate 6 people that are going to listen to this.
my reaction when I was watching that crawl was, "Oh no, are they going to try and tie it to say the First Order is coming?" And then it was like, "No, Ron, the heir to the Empire, will be coming back." And I was like, "Yes, that's right." And I was like, the Hulk when he's just like, "No banner, only Hulk." I was just like, "No First Order, only Thrawn." I literally have that in my
Yes.
notes. Like, I don't know if you can see it. Only Thrawn. All capital letters.
I love
I was
it.
just like,
That's great.
it's a weird favorite part, but I was just like, that's the direction. That's right.
Yeah.
They're back on
Yes.
track. And
Yes.
that felt good to me.
Yes.
Did you have a favorite part?
I wrote down a bunch of favorite parts. I will tell them to you now. My absolute favorite, this isn't necessarily a favorite part, but a favorite thing about it is Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka. She is freaking nailing it. Like,
Yes.
she's got it down, all her mannerisms, her facial expressions. Like, she has embodied Ahsoka, and she's amazing.
They're very small, but so precise.
Yeah, you can tell that she spent a lot of time watching Clone Wars and Rebels and like really like getting to know who she is and just embodying that character. She's done her research and she's nailing it. I love
I
seeing
like the writing for her too.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat, they have this kind of anti-Jedi vibe.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where this is going to go. I was messaging with one of my friends earlier about it because they were like, wait, is Ahsoka a Jedi? Is she not? Like, what's happening? And I was like, well, it kind of yes and no, because I think in a world where there's like almost no Jedi, it's like, yeah, she kind of counts as like the closest thing you're going to find. But she doesn't really consider herself a Jedi, I don't think. Like in Rebels, when they go to the Jedi Temple on Lothal, she tells Kanan and Ezra that they should open it because she isn't a Jedi and she shouldn't be opening the temple. So I don't think that she sees herself that way. Whether or not that's changed since then, I don't know. But I'm hoping that they'll explore kind of her relationship to that more. Because and I think that they will, because they've kind of, her first appearance in live action, the episode of The Mandalorian was called The Jedi. And so it's like, well, they're kind of not really acknowledging the fact that she's technically not a Jedi. And it's kind of gone back and forth on whether or not she is considered one. And then there was, she mentions in this having left the order. She mentions it a few times. So
I think there's an internal and then there's a literal, is my 2 cents. Like in, let's say, in a made-up world where there's a revolution and a good revolution, where we decide, let's hunt down all the cops because all cops are bastards. Very accurate. There's no like black and white, oh, evil Palpatine's doing it. It's like, no. We've decided this experiment didn't work. They're mostly bad apples. Like,
it was a bad idea.
There's going to be a couple leftover ones who are just like, yeah, that went sideways. I kind of left the cop order. No longer with the department. But you still know how to do cop things. And no one else does. So
you received the training and... Right.
You got the Steve Guttenberg diploma of Police Academy 5. And you have that. And... other people don't have that, but you can say, I quit. Like, I could quit my job tomorrow and no longer be a post-production professional, but I also am still able to do it.
Right, but then if somebody was like, oh, I need something edited, you'd be like, I can do it. Like, if there's no one else available to do it, I have the skills necessary.
I don't see myself as an editor anymore.
Right. I'm coming out of retirement for one last job.
An ex-girlfriend needs me to edit something, I guess I'll do it. Because that's always what it is in any lone hero.
Right, it's like the old love interest.
Sylvester Stallone, cliffhanger. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't, give me all the money. No.
It's a pretty good.
Then you're
Sylvester
gonna offer
Stallone.
me, like, try to appeal for my moral sensibilities, and it won't work. Your ex-girlfriend's in trouble. Okay, I'll do it. Like,
All right.
all of those.
Speaking of Jason Statham, my mom and I went to see The Meg 2 the other week and had
Yeah.
just the best time.
Oh, I love the first one.
I also
so
love the first one.
rare.
We rewatched the first one
Yeah.
the one night, and then we went to see the sequel the next day, and then we watched Deep Blue Sea that night because we were on a kick, and it was just a great sharky weekend.
Deep Blue Sea's great.
Oh yeah, it's the best.
So good. Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah. This is worth saying since you're commenting on how natural Rosario felt with the Ahsoka role. I had made a note that seeing her in this temple setting feels so perfect and natural. Because let's say the last time you saw her, you didn't watch Rebels, but you watched the end of Clone Wars. It literally feels like she's wandering out of the mist.
Interesting.
Of the funeral scene at the end of Clone Wars. And if you watched Rebels, it could feel like she's coming out of the dark temple area and into light from where she last disappeared in Rebels.
That's good.
And I'm just like, this really does feel like such a natural, wherever you left off in her story, this is the next beat in it.
Totally. That's a really, really good observation. That's very true. My next thing that I really liked was seeing Clancy Brown reprise his role as Ryder Azadi. That was cool. I was excited to see him.
I was cheering.
And he was great. Yeah, I was very excited.
I was like, it's Clancy!
Yeah. I like his character a lot, and I don't know if he'll have a role in the rest of the series or if this is just like a cameo. I hope that we see a little bit more of him, but yeah, he's great.
A little bit more.
I think he'll be around. But I was excited to see him. We talked about, I said just like the overall aesthetic vibe, opening the drum beat and everything. We said that. The Night Sisters connection with Morgan Elsbeth. I was excited. I don't know if they're going to expand on that anymore. You know, she mentions that her ancestors were Night Sisters. I'm super interested in anything having to do with the Night Sisters. So I don't know if they're going to go into that more, but I hope that they do.
Both Ahsoka and Sabine have history with the Night Sisters. Like, there was an episode of Rebels where, like, to get the Darksaber back, which ties into Mando, too.
Right.
Sabine, Kanan, and Ezra were facing off against, like, their spirits. So, for a second, when Sabine was like, witches, and Ahsoka explains the Night Sisters, I'm like, she's met them. And I was just like, I don't know if that was just conversational or if somebody missed something, but I was like, they've all encountered these people.
I noticed when
we could go blue in the face.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say we could go blue in the face with tie-ins, but like, that is this whole show at this point. I had a niche thought going off the Clancy Brown as Ryder when he was doing the whole, on this day we celebrate Ezra Bridger, our war hero. I immediately thought of Janestown from Firefly. And I was like, if only they knew how fucking stupid Ezra was all the time.
He's so dumb.
Guys,
he's so
Darth
dumb.
Maul is a good guy. He's on our side, guys.
Every single time. Every single time. Guys, we should do this thing that Maul wants us to do. No, Ezra, that's very obviously a trap. Well, I know better than everybody else, and so I think that we should do this. And then, like, literally 30 seconds later, Maul just immediately betrays them, and he's like, guys, look out, it's a trap. Maul betrayed us, and like, he tricked us. It's like, no, Ezra, he tricked you. Nobody else fell for that shit. We were all like, this is very obviously a trap. And then he just turns around and does it again. He does not learn. Every single time he does this. Why?
Yeah, I was watching this, I was like, they have apparently over the past few years decreed a holiday and erected a monument in this
To this
little
kid's stupid
dumbass's honor. And like, granted, he was a hero at the end of the day. He was great.
A stupid hero.
But like, can you imagine Sabine being like, God, our dumbest person? Yeah, I miss him, and he went out bravely. But like, really? Like, I'd be so frustrated if I was Sabine. I'd be like, you guys are doing a parade for Ezra? Like, he was so dumb. I had to save the day constantly. I was always picking up his slack.
Exactly. I think that's the real reason she Little Mermaided it out of that ceremony.
Which is another thing I had a little bit of a nitpick with. Because I was just like, I get that we have to do a character introduction. But it was just like, so we're going to just sandwich in Sabine Captain Kirking away from parent obligation for no discernible reason.
I was confused as to whether or not she had gone and left or just not gone, because it seemed like she had been there, because they were like, she was just here. But then she was leaving,
like, nah, fam.
and she and they were like, oh, you weren't there. She's like, oh, I forgot. But I'm like, but hadn't you been there and left? You can't say that you forgot if everyone saw you there and then you left. I don't understand the sequence of events.
I have a theory. And this is where our industry knowledge kind of comes into play. And it is still speculation. It is 100% speculation, but I feel like the way this happened was some executive who didn't have a creative bone in their body was like, hey, while we're workshopping these ideas, we really need a character intro for Sabine that shows that she's a rebel and she's edgy. What if we did the thing that we always do, where they're playing loud music and driving away from authority figures that have about as much authority as campus police? Because that's literally what happened. And I'm watching it.
Yeah,
and
they're like, come back. And she's like, nah. And they're like, okay.
Yeah, because I was like, what's cool about that scene on a base level, if you're putting that scene together on a creative level, is you're like, you know what was great in Rebels, where a lot of the source material is coming from, is we had this really cool like highway leading away from the city, and we had a lot of big events go down on that highway.
Yeah,
that were really cool.
It's a very dramatic visual
in the final season. Yeah, and so to see that highway in live action could be really cool. And they're like, well, maybe we have Sabine run away from some New Republic cops there, and it's like, all right, well, maybe we make it better, but put it down and we'll revisit it, see if there's anything there. Look, there wasn't anything there, guys. And I would have loved to be like, it was worth it to get a cool live action chase on that highway. The highway deserved better than the green screen we got on that highway. I was watching it and I was just like, look, I'm all for the fan service, but it was really half measured. It was very Ron Swanson to be like, you gotta whole ass this thing, guys. Okay, don't just rip off Star Trek and green screen it up with, like, come on. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of Star Trek, I said to Chris, like, in the first scene when they're on the New Republic ship transporting Morgan Elsbeth, I was like, this feels like Star Trek for some reason. Something about the set design, I don't know if it was like the costumes or something about the lighting, or like
ships.
maybe that, like, for some reason it felt more like a Star Trek set than a Star Wars set to me.
Like early Trek, or like,
I don't know. Well, I haven't even watched any Star Trek, so I don't even know what I'm talking about. But for some reason, it just evoked Star Trek to me.
yeah.
They have this kind of throughout. They have like some very retro stylings of things. So like those New Republic uniforms were like very retro aesthetic. So like that could have been playing into it.
You know what it probably was? Is it was a lot of very retro stuff, which felt authentic to the original trilogy and the time.
Yeah, exactly, which I love. Yeah.
But it's on a TV budget.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, it seems like it's a TV set, kind of thing. So I think some of it was like the lighting and the sets.
Yeah, because it's like when we're seeing all that in HD, but it is still TV budget. you just can't hide the fact that it looks like TV budget. Like every movie ever made, like even if it's a bad movie, it looks different from TV because more money goes into
Right.
movies.
Right.
Shorter turnaround, you have more lighting, you have more effects, you have more atmosphere. Every single shot is kind of done more specifically because they've hired a DP. I mean, they hire DPs for TV too, but they're getting a job done for like 24 episodes, you know, or even if it's
Right.
12, which or 6, which is modern. It's like that's so
Mhm.
much content. You can't put that. You're just moving a story
Right.
along.
Exactly.
Acceptable. It's very acceptable, but it
Mhm.
is like things will stand out.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Um.
That's where I wanted to dive into. I think there was a little bit of an adaptation problem.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Because it definitely felt like they were adapting something that worked really, 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 really well in Rebels to this, and it felt a little like a sore thumb in live action. And I think that was partly because of the pacing, and just it's hard to do in live action and for it to not feel like a soap opera. Because in Rebels, you have all these nice scenes that are in a TV show where it's like, we're going to stop and have the characters talk to each other, point out their flaws, which is very natural in a found family environment, which was the set of Rebels.
Right.
We had a lot in the first 2 episodes, and I don't want to get too much into number 2, but we had a lot of internal character conflict we're going to talk about. And it just doesn't feel... The pacing works better with that in 22-minute episodes animation than it does in an hour-long episode in live action. And that's why I say also earlier we were saying, you know, I don't remember what we said earlier, but like I give him credit. It's okay. This is kind of a really acceptable mistake to be making because where it came from, Rebels, 22-minute animation episodes, was a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Adapting it to something completely different is trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And
right. In certain ways, yes.
Yeah. So some corners will have to get knocked off.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's tricky because Rebels had such a flow with like the dynamics of all those characters and their interpersonal dynamics and everything that like those interactions all felt really natural and really compelling, and they're kind of they're trying to start from scratch and also continue a whole narrative because they have 2 audiences that they have to play to, right? They have people who have watched Rebels and are already really invested in these characters and their backstories, and you have new viewers who have watched maybe like The Mandalorian and like maybe some of the live action shows but haven't watched Rebels and don't know these characters, and you have to introduce them and get them up to speed, but they don't have the pre-existing buy-in to like who is Hera Syndulla, who is Sabine Wren, you know, why do I care about them? So they've really got their work cut out for them, I think, in that respect, doing justice to characters that people are already really invested in while like bringing new people up to speed.
Yeah. I had one problem with the cliffhanger. Did you have a problem with the cliffhanger at all?
In episode 1 or episode 2?
Episode 1.
How did it end again?
For people who are listening, I'm pretending to stab myself through the
chest. Oh yeah. Right.
My issue with it is, for anyone who just decided we're just going to listen to the podcast, we're not going to watch it, and we're okay with the spoiler that Peter's about to say right now, is that Sabine's in a lightsaber fight and someone stabs her through the abdomen.
I said to Chris, I was like, I love how in the Star Wars universe, a lightsaber through the abdomen is just like, that's like, they would turn you away at the ER for that. They're just like, just go to urgent care. This is not an emergency situation. This is like, you just need a Band-Aid. You're fine. We have way more urgent things to deal with.
Oh, we're going to continue this rant in episode 2, but no, we're just going to get into it right now, and we're just going to transition into episode 2. Because
like, just put some Neosporin on it. It'll be fine.
No, just get some rest. get some rest and you'll be okay
Yeah, just
tomorrow.
sleep it off. You'll be good.
The bigger thing to me is, are they trying to just take a dump in Qui-Gon Jinn's mouth?
I know. That's what I was just thinking of. I think I sent you that video, the one where like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are like rewatching the battle at Naboo, and he's like when he gets stabbed, yeah, and he's like, oh man, he's like, how long was it after this that they invented Bacta? And he's like, oh, it was like 30 seconds later. He's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, they really treat it like any wound in Star Wars, aside from like getting a hand cut off, which just means you need a robot arm now. Oh, okay, well that's also no
also not a huge deal. Robot hand,
but like
lightsaber wound, not a problem. I was just reading
the solve for this was literally like pixie cut. Like she was just like, you're not ready. Like, and that was even a plot point in episode 2. Like, when are they ready? You'll know. You'll look at them and you'll know.
And you'll be like,
cut.
Haircut.
I'm ready. Oh
it's
yeah,
done.
You did the haircut. You're healed. You're healed and you're ready.
Peter, haven't you ever been a girl who went through a breakup? Haircut. It fixes everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
You're ready to move on. You're ready for the next step. Haircut. Dramatic haircut.
If we're going off of society norm jokes, I have definitely been a girl in a breakup before.
That is true.
I think you were there for it.
I've seen you as a girl in a breakup.
You've seen me as a girl in a breakup where someone broke up with me and I was just like, no, they don't know what they're doing.
I wish I had some more hair that I could cut off.
I have a memory of one time I was like bummed about something and you were just like, oh, I'm going to come up and see you in your dorm. And I was just like, cool, the door's open. And you walked in and you're just like, are you okay? And I'm like, why do you ask that? And you're just like, well, because you're standing on the balcony looking off into the distance.
Brooding.
Like a total drama king brooding. And I was like, okay, yeah.
Classic Peter.
What a broody little emo.
Tell the truth. You were imagining you were Batman.
I was totally imagining I was Batman. We've all been the girl in a breakup. The haircut is what changes everything. I like that joke. That's great. But yeah, I had a whole tangent thought about that earlier today. I was just like, this is a whole thing. Like, you're healed and you're ready. Okay, now I'm just repeating myself.
What I did love though,
the stab did nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. I was also just reading a book, one of the Star Wars books that same thing happened. Somebody gets stabbed through the chest with a lightsaber, and a few days in the Bacta tank, and they're like, all right, well, that was rejuvenating. Like,
yeah. Like, I'm better now.
All set. Back to it, I guess.
Apparently, healthcare is amazing in the Star Wars universe, no matter what empire is currently in power, like, or what outer rim planet you're on.
As long as Bacta is not in short supply, everyone's golden.
Did Sabine even get in a Bacta tank, or did she just take a nap? And they're like, you good now.
I imagine they may have put her in a Bacta tank off screen before we found her again, but maybe not. Maybe they just kind of applied some Bacta topically, gave her like a little Bacta poultice or something. I don't know.
I'm just like, for once, can we just see somebody just get taken out by like a kind of regular injury? I mean, like a lightsaber in itself is like you ever burned yourself on the stove and you're just like, okay, one, that pain is exhausting. Two, my body is like working rapidly to heal, part of itself. So that takes energy. Like, burns are a big thing. Like, if someone grazed a leg, which has happened in Star Wars, Obi-Wan got his leg grazed by Dooku and was just like, I'm down for the count now.
Yeah, he was like, that hurts. Ow.
Yeah, he was like, Anakin, I'm tapping out. Take my lightsaber, bro. I'm tapping. He's like, you serious? He's like, yeah, I hit my leg. It really sucks. It hurts a lot.
I'm gonna need some time to recover for this.
Like, I was just like, that's reasonable though. That's very reasonable logic. Like, someone just like slashes you on the side. One, you also get like a badass scar forever. You got to
Mm-hmm.
deal with that injury. Like, injuries mean nothing in Star Wars. They're like, no,
No.
we will literally slash through the inside of your organs, but you will recover in a day after you take a nap and a bath.
Apparently, according to another book that I just read called Lost Stars, which is fantastic. One of the
Is this also
only
Star Wars?
yes. I only read Star Wars books. You should know this. I was just counting. I've read over like 80, well, audiobooked over 80 Star Wars books in the last like 2 or 3 years. But anyway, Lost Stars, I learned that one of the only body parts that is a really significant injury is the liver, because the liver's function is so complex that it can't really be replicated. There were like most like body part, like limbs or organs, can be replaced with like a synthetic one.
Yeah.
But the liver cannot. So there you go.
Damn.
So as long as it missed her liver, I guess she's good.
That looked like it was on that side of the body, though.
I'm no space doctor, but
maybe the truth is there's no Bacta involved or anything. Sabine just drinks a lot, and her liver was just like bounced off the lightsaber. I don't know. No, there's no joke.
That's
there.
gotta be it. That's not a joke. That went nowhere.
Yeah. Peter, that makes about as much sense as someone taking a lightsaber to the abdomen and being fine the next day. Like, so checks out.
Pretty much.
Checks out. What a great joke. What a great joke.
What a great job all around.
Did you have a favorite part of episode 2?
Yeah, so speaking of going back to haircuts, I was thinking that scene where Sabine cuts her hair off kind of mirrored the scene where Kanan cuts his hair off in Rebels. And it looked very similar to, like, he had kind of a little ceremonial little table thing. He had his like visor thing that he wore sitting there. She had her helmet and did like a ceremonial hair cutting thing. So I liked that, mirroring that scene a lot. That also kind of signifying a like, I'm ready to move on to like a next step,
because I was like, couldn't put my finger on it, and it was very Kanan when it happened. And I was like, oh, this is any samurai scene ever where they do that. And I was just like, no, this is literally exactly the Kanan scene, which makes it so.
It was like a very iconic, you see it in like Mulan, you see it in like, it's like the dramatic hair chop is definitely a thing, but the setup with the little table and like the helmet or the visor, like it was a very similar kind of thing. So I liked that little homage.
How do you feel about the idea that Sabine has force aptitude?
I'm not 100%. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that she does. I don't know if it's necessarily been established that she does. All that's really been said is like that she sucks at the Force.
Yeah.
Well, he said you suck at the Force, which doesn't necessarily mean you can do anything with the Force. Like, it means she's really bad at it.
But that's like if the droid were to tell Han Solo, you suck at the Force, he'd be like,
that would also be true. Yeah.
Of course I suck at the Force. That's not how the Force works.
Yeah.
But like, I'm like, why would she be held to that standard? Like, why would Ahsoka be like, you could have been a Jedi and things like that? I'm like, did they find out she has some sensitivity?
Unless, Ahsoka, I'm interested to see where it's going, because probably it is that. But it is possible, Ahsoka is kind of in this zone where she's now reinventing what it means to be a Jedi. The Order is gone. We've already seen, in the beginning when Hu Yang is like, how did you get Morgan to tell you where this map was? And she's like, I didn't abide by the Jedi code, or like whatever she said. I didn't follow the Jedi rules. So she's clearly like it kind of in this in-between zone where she's like, yes, I'm kind of a Jedi, but like the Order doesn't exist anymore. I'm not part of this thing. I'm gonna like, I have the skills, I have the training, some parts of this are still really important to me, but I'm not going to abide by all these rules. I'm kind of making up my own rules at this point.
Yeah.
So who's to say that she can't take on an apprentice that she sees a lot of promise in and teach her to fight and everything, and not necessarily have the Force be a part of that?
I really like that interpretation better than what I think they're doing, because I was also like, look, if Sabine's Force sensitive, then they're kind of taking a poop on Kanan that he didn't pick up on it, even if her like sensitivity is like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because he did some lightsaber training with her as well. So like
yeah,
I would think like spending all that time with Kanan and Ezra and having them, do all their Jedi training around her and stuff, like that it would have come up.
it had, it almost is kind of like it would feel like a mistake if it didn't. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think your idea is a better story. That for Ahsoka, she's like, I'll train somebody just as an apprentice for being what I am, which is just somebody who wanders
Yeah.
and helps people.
Mm-hmm.
And Sabine's definitely kind of a kindred spirit in that she has a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Not regret.
Moxie. Oh.
Mo- well, she has a badass origin story for
She
anyone
sure
who hasn't
does.
watched Rebels. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Empire roped her into doing some bad stuff, but because she's a genius,
Mm-hmm.
and um, you could definitely see that touch of genius when she was tinkering things.
Mm-hmm.
That reminded me a lot of the animated
Mm-hmm.
character and how
Mm-hmm.
that it was presented, and I was like, that's good to see, because
Yeah.
the Captain Kirk intro didn't do it for me. It felt cut, copy, paste,
Mm-hmm.
and like, just tell me what happened in the time jump. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this time jump is hurting that same
Right.
dialogue adaptation problem,
Right.
because they're like, we're gonna stretch out, now that we're talking about episode 2 also,
Mm-hmm.
sandwich episode for our premiere, because the premiere was sandwiched.
Mm-hmm.
um that problem of the dialogue not hitting the 20-minute pacing, I felt like we had
Mm-hmm.
2 episodes in a row, 2 hours of this whole,
Mm-hmm.
your Padawan doesn't like you. Yes, she
Okay.
does. Well, you
My
just need to be accepting. And I was like, just tell us what happened.
I
It's
know.
so hard to
Same.
compare
Thank you.
if we're doing this for 2 hours and we don't even know what happened, and we even like these characters.
I
Like,
wrote literally in my section about like is there anything like we would have done differently? I wrote like 2 to 3 fewer cryptic allusions to Ahsoka and Sabine history. Like they just keep giving us these like cryptic like, oh, because of your history. It's like, all right, either tell us or don't. Like
yeah,
like I get wanting to like plant some seeds and then like, get to it later, like that's fine, but it was just like
yeah,
it was too much of like the same sort of just like cryptic allude. It's like, all right, we get it. There's some history. She was
yeah.
training her and then she left. But it was like too kind of beating us over the head with the like, oh, oh, it's awkward. Oh, like I was like, okay, all right.
They beat us over the head with it, and then it really hurt because of that dialogue format. Because that
Mm-hmm.
dialogue format worked in Rebels, it doesn't work for 2 hours of itself in a row without getting somewhere. Because in Rebels,
Right.
if this were happening, the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, in 20 minutes, we would have already tied up all of that.
Right. Right.
We would have found
Mm-hmm.
out what it was that they
Yeah.
were upset about. They would have resolved it in 20 minutes, not in 2
Yeah. Or
hours.
it would have
And
happened, or
2
they
hours,
would
we
have
still don't
hinted
know.
at it, and then it would have happened in the next episode, which it would still be in the length of time of the first one of these episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Which, for me, kind of hurt Mary Elizabeth Winstead's portrayal.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm really, really hoping that they're going to do more with Hera's character and give her more characterization and story outside of just supporting the other characters. Because
yeah.
so far that's been her main role, is to kind of try to bring Ahsoka and Sabine back together, which is a very Hera thing to do. Like she's space mom. She's there to like, help everybody along the way and help them
Yeah.
grow and like bring people together. And like that's a very Hera role to play. But Hera also is such an amazing, such a deep, such a beloved character that she deserves some really, really strong continuation of her story. And I hope that they don't sideline her.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to. She seems
I
very
don't
front
think that
and
they're
center.
going to either.
Yeah.
But so far, I think they haven't given her much other than just kind of like trying to handhold these other two characters,
Yeah. I have kind of a cynical theory about it. and it's a hard opinion, but I feel like at some point in the casting process, someone was like, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is interested in doing it. And then they're like, well, that's the best name we got. So casting kind of just stopped there. And they're like, well, I guess we're doing this. It's not like she's bad, but I will say I
Yeah.
think they probably should have kept looking because the dialogue is very true to Rebels dialogue. It's very true to Hera's character. It's very good, aside from the adaptation being a little wonky.
Right.
That's there. So I'm like, all right, if Vanessa Marshall did these same lines, which I've heard her do lines like this before, it would land.
That's what, like,
That's what
every
was hitting.
time Hera says something, I try to imagine it in Vanessa Marshall's voice. Because that's Hera to me. And I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead is doing a good job with what little they've given her to do so far. And it's kind of hard to tell because they haven't really given her much, like, emotional stuff. But I don't know, Hera is such an iconic and to me her voice is such a big part of who she is. She's got like and Mary Elizabeth Winstead is a very, very different, and she's not embodying Hera in the way that Rosario Dawson is embodying Ahsoka. And I don't
feel the warmth and passion exploding forth from her the same way the voice character did.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you have more to work with. You've got your whole body. You're not even being animated.
Right. Which, like, maybe in another few episodes, once they give her more of her own, like, motivations and stuff, maybe that'll come through. I hope so. I don't really know. Yeah, I think that, I think she's doing a fine job, but I do find myself wondering, what she would be like if portrayed by somebody else.
Yeah, and I don't not like her, and I don't
want not like her either.
I'm just trying to look at it through a lens of, okay, why does it feel a little off? Why did this probably happen? Why is it just me? Because that was another question I asked myself while I was watching this, because overall, we're pointing out a lot of things that are like fun to dissect in terms of what it takes to make this. We could probably spend an hour talking about the green screen stuff. And I don't think our audience really wants that.
I don't think I really want that.
Yeah, I don't even want to either. It's something I could do, but it just, no, that's a sidecar on a motorcycle we don't need. On this,
it's 12:30 in the morning where I am, and I don't have an hour to listen to green screen
Let's
stuff.
not do that. But the question I asked that ties into this, I asked myself, would we like all of this as much as we do? Which, to be clear, is a lot.
Oh yeah.
I really loved this. Would we love all this as much if we hadn't watched Rebels?
That's what this is.
Like, would it mean as much to us as it does being a story payoff?
When I watched it the first time, I was like, I really want to watch it again and try to put myself in the mind of someone who hasn't seen all of that. Like, I want to try to watch it, but I can't, because I couldn't do like, when I watched it the second time, I was like trying to put myself in the headspace, but I can't. Like, I'm so familiar with the material and I'm so invested in it that I can't put it out of my mind, and it kept sucking me in, and I kept forgetting, and I'd go like 10 minutes and then be like, wait, I was supposed to be pretending I don't know who this is, and I'd have to go back and like watch Sabine's introduction again, and then like try to imagine that I'm getting to this character for the first time. And it was really hard, and I couldn't really do it, but so I don't know. I honestly would love to hear from people who haven't watched those things
and are experiencing it for the first time
and see what they think.
At the same time, I want to tell all of them, go watch Rebels first.
Yeah, I want to be like, oh, what did you think of that? All right, before you watch any further, go back and watch Rebels and then continue. But I'm curious what the experience is of people that are watching for the first time.
Yeah, no, that would be interesting. I don't know if there's a comment section, but blow up the comments.
Yeah.
we
Message us
haven't
and let
thought
us
this
know.
through.
If you haven't watched Rebels, let us know what you think. But also, what are you doing? And go watch Rebels. And the other thing that I really liked in episode 2 is just the visuals of the star map. Beautiful. Really, really pretty. Like when Morgan Elsbeth
Gorgeous.
and like they open up the star map, like so cool. However, and this is something Chris pointed out, and I was like, damn it, now I literally can't think about anything else. I don't know if they'll address this later, but I imagine they won't because Star Wars does this all the time. Why is there a map to Thrawn's location hidden in a temple? This fancy map. Who made this? Who put it there? To what end?
It's a stupid MacGuffin.
This is like something that's always it was the same thing in the sequel trilogy with this map to Luke Skywalker. I'm like, did he make the map and then like divide it up and put it in different places? If so, why? If he didn't want to be found, why would he make a map to his exact location?
The worst thing I've ever seen in my life in episode 9, where they're like, this knife matches the Death
if
Star
you stand
ruins.
in the same
if you stand in this spot, I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
But yeah, so like there's a map to Thrawn's location because that's how we're gonna move the story forward, I guess. But I'm like, did Thrawn make the map and somehow get it there? Did somebody else happen to
Star Wars
somehow
fish in a
know
bottle.
where he was? Yeah, I don't know.
I do like imagining that for anyone who knows the character of Thrawn and Lars Mickelson's interpretation, to just be like, when you're stranded in the edge of space, what you want to do is make a map out of golden glittery things and throw it into a portal. Like, butchering the accent. I'm absolutely butchering it.
I was gonna say, like, you're pretty good at impressions. You need to work on your Thrawn, man. That was pretty bad.
Really bad.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
I gotta spend more time watching him. Apparently,
this is your homework for next week. You gotta work on the Thrawn voice.
To learn your enemy. Yeah, wow, I can't do it.
This is you need to be deeper, lower. Practice it.
I'm not gonna try it again. I'm not gonna do it now.
No. Next week, come back to us with
it. That is the goal for the end of this, is to be able to, since this is all audio, we want to at least give you a soundbite from Thrawn that's original, because we don't have the budget for any actual soundbites or music, and honestly no one does, because Lucasfilm, Disney, so there you go. Can we even say Disney? Can we say Disney?
Probably not.
On here? Disney?
Disney. What was the thing I was gonna say? Oh, Star Map. I am excited about the concept of exploring the unknown regions / this other galaxy that they're talking about, because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've ever explored or even acknowledged the unknown regions.
No, it's a game changer.
In any live action anything.
Not in live action. I glanced at a video today where someone was exploring some stuff, but like there's one from a video game, one from a book series. They didn't even mention, I think this is just from farther away in the galaxy, but they didn't even mention the Uzan Vong from the novels, which honestly feel more Trek than Star Wars. So I don't really want that, but I'm like, if Filoni's doing it, it could be exciting. Like it could be cool.
Yeah. I'm interested to see like what he's gonna tie in. I was reminded in my rewatch of Rebels, there's an episode where Ahsoka says someone's like, oh, I thought that was only a legend, and she says there's always a bit of truth in legends, and that's kind of been interpreted by some people as like a nod from Dave Filoni to being like, you know, legends continuity stuff, like, oh, maybe be some pulling some stuff in from that. So I re-listened to the audiobooks of the Heir to the Empire trilogy earlier this summer as for a refresh, so that, because if there's any little like Easter eggs or anything from there, I'm hoping to see some stuff, but I wanted to make sure that it wouldn't pass me by.
No, of course. I mean, it's funny that you were talking about the star map and the map and ancient civilizations, because once we get to the end of that episode, a moment I really liked was when Ray Stevenson looks up his character and you can hear the sound of the Purgils. I love that. I was like, oh, it's happening.
Yeah, Chris pointed out in the very big, I think it was in the beginning, um, in the music, there's like the drum beat, and then there's like a sound that kind of sounds like the Purgles, and Chris was like, "Oh, that's the space whales," and I was like, "Oh yeah, good."
Yeah. I had one more thought about episode 2 it's just a humorous thought. It's just
Go
Peter
ahead.
going on a humorous rant. I'm not actually mad at this. I want people to know.
Okay.
But on the last episodes of the Clone Wars, Darth Maul is escaping from Ahsoka Tano, and
Yes.
he is escaping from her in a medium-sized spaceship shuttle,
Mhm.
and she tries to hold the shuttle back using the Force,
Mhm.
which is no easy feat. But
Yes.
this is Anakin Skywalker's apprentice, who also trained under Yoda.
Mhm.
So, you know,
She
if
hella
she was
strong.
if she was giving it everything she got and she didn't have like another thing she had to do in that moment, like you might have been able to do it. And
Mhm.
either way, she was actively doing it before
Mhm.
failing. We have a moment where she's made it very clear that the stakes of the universe are at hand and the bad guys are about to escape with it. And they escape in a medium-sized spaceship. And Ahsoka just stands there. And I was like, really? You're gonna quiet quit at this moment, Ahsoka? This is the moment you pick? I understand. Like, Rosario Dawson can totally do a, like, fourth wall break and just be like, look, the VFX artist did a quiet quit. That is why
Mhm.
I am quiet quitting right now. And it is fair all around. And we just had a war. I'm tired. Like, in
I
character.
need
Like,
a nap.
from every angle in that moment, I was like, the character quiet quit, and I agree with them. The VFX artist quiet quit, and I agree with them. Everyone did. And I was just like, yeah, that's how the universe is gonna go to shit. Someone's finally just everyone in the room is just gonna be like, nah, it's not worth it. Like, that's what it's gonna come down to. And yeah, that's my humorous rant about like
I
I was like, this could have been solved, but nah,
nah
just
nah.
nah.
Yeah, that is a very true and true observation. It's true and
It's a
true.
it was more just for humor's sake.
It's
Um,
true and humorous.
should we dive into what we want to see next?
Um, Let me just see if I had anything else that I wanted to mention. I am super interested in Balin and Shin. Um,
Ooh, yeah,
I want to know like what their deal is. I'm super intrigued to learn more
yeah.
about them. Because
More
they,
intrigued than I thought I would be.
me too. I was kind of expecting just like, okay, here's some like new bad guys that'll
Another
be,
Dark Jedi.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, they seem to be some sort of dark Jedi, but not Sith and not Inquisitors.
Yeah.
Um, Shin's got a Padawan braid. They seem to be, he
Oh, I
was a
missed
Jedi.
that.
Yep, Padawan braid.
Cool.
I also noticed that she wears a brown cloak instead of a black one, robes, and that kind of makes me wonder if she might eventually turn toward the light.
Hmm.
Um, could be a hint there. Not sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
super intrigued to see where that is going and what their whole deal is.
Yeah.
Um,
Strong agrees.
my other thing was I liked Ezra's message that he left for Sabine. Seeing that was really sweet because I don't believe we saw that in Rebels. We saw the message that he had left for the whole Ghost team, but we didn't see
Hmm.
this other message that he left just for Sabine, um,
Yeah.
which was nice because in Rebels he's like in the message that he leaves for everyone he's like, and Sabine, remember, and she's like, right, you're counting on me, as he's saying, I'm counting on you. So it was nice
Oh
seeing,
yeah, that finally
yeah,
paid
that this
off.
came from this other message that she had because I was like, when did he say that to her, and it was in this other
Yeah.
message. um, and I liked that in this one he said, um, we're not really family, but you've always been like a sister to me. And I was like, thank you. That is the correct dynamic
Yeah.
for these two.
I was worried about that. And I almost missed it the first time I was watching it, but Jason, I was watching it with my roommate. He pointed out I had to rewind. Um, because there's that moment where she like strokes the painting's face, and I was like,
Hmm.
don't do it. Don't do
Mm-hmm.
the Ezra Sabine. He's like, no, they already covered that. I was like, oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked
Yeah,
about it. It is a
yeah.
found family relationship. It doesn't need to fit into Ross and Rachel, the same NBC hole of it's a relationship that every other show
No,
wants to do.
I am not interested in shipping Ezra and Sabine at all. I don't think
Those,
that they make sense as a couple. They really were like brother and sister in
they were brother and sister.
Rebels,
Yeah.
and that is how it must remain.
Yeah.
Um,
And that is
Also,
special. Like, that is a very
yeah,
special
they
relationship.
have a very, very special bond, and it is a familial bond and not a romantic bond.
Yeah.
Um, I will not be convinced otherwise. And yeah, also, Sabine can do so much better than Ezra. He's so dumb.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's so stupid. I honestly don't. I almost feel like an overprotective dad, just how much I love the character. I'm like, no one's good enough for her.
No, it's true. It's
I'm
true.
like, I'm like, brainstorm right now. Give me one name. One.
I don't have one.
Yeah, she has it all.
Um, my last note on favorite parts are Loath Kitty Cat. I want one.
Yes, and
It's so
points that
cute.
they went puppet route for the Loaf Kitty Cat, even though the puppet looks like Dark Crystal, just repurposed. Um, I was like, good moves. Yeah,
Yeah, it's so cute.
practical.
I love its
Yeah,
little kitty cat noises. I love its weird little duck feet.
it's great.
I love it.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I had it in my notes, but there's so much for us to dive into with this. 2 episodes. Um, I I have one more critical thought and one more really, 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 really positive thought. My critical
Okay.
one ties back into Hera. So there was a line Hera says to Ahsoka that felt very Hera, where she says, "Well, what makes someone ready?" And in the animated
Mm,
series, I feel like that would have been a moment that's a rhetorical question that prompts
mm-hmm.
for Ahsoka. But then Ahsoka just like turned it back on her, and she's like, "You know, and they know." And I was just like, it really felt like she was saying it from experience.
And they cut their hair.
And then it did happen, and then yeah, she did a pixie cut, and she's like, now I know that
That's the signal. That's what I've been waiting for. I really wish
ties
that
into the other
conversation
joke.
was like Hera was like, "How do you know when someone's ready?" And she's like, "They cut their hair and they get a pixie cut, and then you know."
Yeah, when they go to the barber shop or do it them DIY,
Yeah,
then that's when you know. That's how
that's when
you
they're
know.
ready.
But like I was upset about that because I was like, that could have been a good moment for Hera to talk some sense into Ahsoka,
Right.
which would feel very Hera in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, Ahsoka was like, "No, you're wrong." And I was just like, "Did Mary Elizabeth Winstead miss the line
Yeah.
read? Was it not supposed to be rhetorical?" And I don't want to like keep hammering on it,
Mm,
but it just like it immediately just like felt like a punch in the gut for what
mm,
Hera's supposed to be in those
yeah.
moments.
It's kind of interesting. It's like Hera and Ahsoka's dynamic is an interesting one because like Hera is space mom, like of the Ghost crew.
Yeah,
She's mom, and then Ahsoka is like the
space
cool
ant.
aunt. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So like and we didn't really have a ton of scenes with Hera and Ahsoka in Rebels. So there's not a lot of established dynamic between them. So we're used to seeing her as this very motherly figure towards Sabine and Ezra,
Yeah.
and sometimes Zeb when she's yelling at him. After we were talking last time about like, is Zeb one of the siblings or is he like a weird uncle or something? I
Yeah,
had the
the
realization that
cousin.
the reason you know he's one of the siblings is that she uses his full name when she's mad at him.
Yeah,
Get
that
Zeb Aurelius! That's how you know.
that's how he gets called to dinner. Like,
Exactly.
that's funny.
Um,
I hope
but
we see him.
anyway, that's kind of the dynamic that we see with most of the main characters, but she doesn't have that dynamic with Ahsoka. Um, but there isn't really an established dynamic with Ahsoka, so
Yeah.
it's kind of it's kind of awkward because she can't really do that. Like, oh well, like let me ask you this rhetorical question in a really like nurturing way to like guide you toward this thing because like that's not what Ahsoka is.
It's definitely not their dynamic. So
It's
I was
not.
like, I had a lot of feelings about it because that's
Mhm.
a good point. And I was just like, can they talk to each other kind of like sisters who have both been through some shit.
Right.
And I was like, maybe that's what Hera's going for. And Ahsoka's just like, no. Like, just, you're wrong. I still have
Yeah.
seniority on emotional maturity. And I was just like,
In my book, experience
okay.
outranks everything.
Yeah. There's a good Ahsoka line right there. I like, some people are talking about the whole whether we see her in gray or white at the end, and I'm like, I still think we might see her transform into Ahsoka the White.
Ahsoka the White.
Yeah. Like, if
I
you saw the
really
end of
loved.
Rebels,
I loved seeing the end of Rebels played out there. I that made those first 2 episodes feel really good to me, because I had kind of been like, where I was a little bit confused as to where we're supposed to be in the timeline after the end of Rebels, having that epilogue at the end of Rebels, where Ahsoka comes back and Sabine meets her. I was like, is this after that? Is this before that? Like, I was kind of confused. I was like, is this a new? And so, like, when Ahsoka, because there's kind of a version of that in the beginning, like Ahsoka comes to Lothal, Sabine goes and meets her. So I was like, is that now this new version of that meeting? Because it was kind of different, but it was kind of the same.
yeah,
So I was kind of like,
I
oh,
was
where is
thinking
this?
that too.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, oh, where is this going? And so at the very end there, when they do that, like, shot for shot, um, Rebels epilogue, I was like, okay, now this feels good, because now and it was kind of having both episodes air and watching them together and having it lead up to that point, felt like, okay, this was all set up to get to where we left off at Rebels still, which we needed.
That's
because we need to establish the characters for the new viewers. We need to fill in the gaps of, like, what has happened in the meantime before this
Even though
epilogue
we
happens.
still haven't, which pisses
We
me off.
still haven't, but
Yeah.
it's like, at the end of Rebels, it's like, has Sabine seen Ahsoka since all of the other events of Rebels? We don't know. When we first,
She has to have, because there's nothing for her to be upset with Ahsoka about during Rebels.
No, I mean, like,
Something else
in Rebels, in the end of Rebels, in the
Yeah.
epilogue, we don't
Oh,
know
we
when
were wondering.
Ahsoka arrives. Yeah, we don't know if this is the first time they're seeing each other, or if there is more history. So now we know that there is more history. We don't know exactly what the history is, but we've filled in some blanks, and opened up more of them. So I think that was, like, helpful context, and then it leaves off being like, okay, now we're finally picking up where we left off with Rebels, and now we can go forward with it.
Chopper.
My notes under what do we want to see next? I have, like, a couple of notes, and then in really big all caps letters, I just wrote more Chopper.
Yeah. And when I watch the next episode, I will just be fast forwarding to get to the chopper. No, I will not be fast forwarding. But yeah, I was
Give me all the Chopper. I loved his little, like, fist bump when he tossed the tracker on the thing, and he's like, yes.
When he was just throwing stuff behind him. Not this, not this, not this. I found it. So good.
I love him.
I want to see a behind the scenes video of Dave Filoni voicing him. Like,
I also want that a lot.
Yeah. I don't watch those Disney behind the scenes how we made it, because I'm like, I get it. I don't need a whole documentary on production. But I'm like, I will watch it for that 100%.
If you promise me Dave Filoni in the recording booth doing Chopper, I am there.
Yeah, I am 100% there. I'll watch the whole thing. Yeah. God, that was great. I don't. Yeah.
What do you want to see next?
Me?
Yeah. Is there anything else that you're
aside from more Chopper? I just really want to see a streamlined story. Mm-hmm. I like that we have the Master Padawan, who were clearly at some point sort of Jedi and have gone sort of dark. I like that whatever they're about is sort of rooted in some sort of sensible approach to making order out of chaos for them. And I like that also really mirrors Ahsoka's world a little bit. Like, she's kind of had to make lemons out of garbage. And whatever's going on with Sabine is also similar, knowing her backstory alone. So we have a really cool, like, dystopian world where there's only a few of these heroes left, and you have two sides of a coin for these two unique relationships that are coming to head over a conflict in Star Wars that is actually a great conflict, which is Thrawn. Not somehow Palpatine returned as a conflict. Not, I don't know, just that First Order stuff that is just like, hey, it turned out there have been secret Nazis this whole time. Like, I know that the title of the franchise, I have to remind myself this, is Star Wars. It's not the Star War. It's plural.
That's true.
There's more than one.
There's always going to be another war.
I always thought it was like, this is the saga of the epic Star War, the most important pivotal one, and it ended at Return of the Jedi when, you know, they finally won the war. And it's like, I was like, really? Episode 7? It's just kind of still going? The Empire had that big of a budget? I mean, of course they did, but like, I guess that was just a battle. They still hadn't finished beating them all, and they just had a branding change, maybe. And I was like, however you want to look at it, fine. It keeps going, but it just didn't sit well with me. I'm just like, this is like a big moment, and they kind of killed it. And I'm like, I like that. Look, if you're gonna say there's more Star Wars, the world keeps on turning and burning in this universe. God, make the guy for the Second World War Hitler worthy. Make it Thrawn. Make it awesome. Don't make it, you know, Dom Hall, nepotism, Gleason screaming Nazi stuff and everybody being like, who is this manager? Like, you know.
Although I have to say, I do love the one moment where he like reveals that he was the mole, and he just like, he like turns around and like shoots the guy, and he like turns back around and he's like, it was me. Like, he just like eats that up so much. I'm the spy. And like, that's gone in our family lexicon. Like, Chris and I will like say that whenever there's something that's like, oh, like,
love that for you guys, because it's so meme worthy. It's so meme worthy.
It is.
So niche.
I feel like it's a very niche one that I don't feel like is quite popular enough. But in our household, it is. It would be like, oh, like, did somebody feed the dog this morning? It was me.
It was me. I'm the spy for everything. Oh, I hated it because to me it felt like it was ripping off what's his name, who we love, Zeb's best friend, from Rebels,
Agent Callus.
It felt like it was ripping off Callus, but making a joke out of it, and Callus's story was great.
Callus's story is amazing.
I was like, I don't need this knockoff Callus.
Did that come out after Rebels?
No, Callus came first. That came after. Yeah.
Okay. I had not watched Rebels yet at that point.
Was get out of here.
Okay.
My immediate reaction was no.
That's fair. I had not seen Rebels yet at that point, so I did not yet know about Agent Callus. But
yeah. Devan saw Rebels and then got a tattoo.
That is an accurate representation of the order of events that happened. Actually, a more accurate representation is Peter told Devan for like 7 years that she needed to watch Rebels, and then she finally did and got a tattoo.
Oh, I don't think we're gonna top that story.
If you were gonna choose one of these characters to watch your dog for the weekend, which character would you ask and why?
Like, I want to say Chopper because it's really funny, but I also want my dog to live.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. Okay, so if it's not Chopper, because then I'm just, going to jail for animal cruelty and murder.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Actually, you know what? You'll hate my answer. You'll hate it, but it's Ezra.
Because Ezra's not even here.
No, he's not even here, but we saw him. He's a character in this. And you know what would happen if you have Ezra babysit your dog? Ezra will play with the dog all day because he is a
Okay,
dog.
that's
He
a
will
really
tire it
good
out.
point. That
He
is
will
true.
tire it out, and when you come home, the dog will just want to snuggle with you and go to sleep.
Okay, that's a really good answer. That's fair. That's a good one. I was gonna say Ryder Azadi. Because I feel like he's really solid, he's responsible, he's organized, like he's gonna just like do what needs to be done, take care of business.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah, I feel like
you
he'd
would teach
be
your
like
dog
warm
trick.
and responsible, and yeah, he
Yeah.
would like bond with it and have kind of like a good vibe. I think he would do a good job.
You'd come home and he'd be like, check this out. Roll over. Use my new tricks.
And the dog would do it because he'd be like, this guy's an amazing leader.
Yeah. The dog would be like, anything out of Clancy Brown's voice, I'm gonna
I'll do it.
without question.
It's been my problem this whole time is I don't have Clancy Brown's voice. At every turn in my life, this is where it all goes wrong.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. We hope you'll join us again for next week's episode.
We'll be posting new episodes whenever we get them done at whenever they're ready. Bye!